Welcome to the Energy Hack podcast, where we explore the dynamics of the downstream and the midstream energy sector. I am your host, Dami. Today I have a special guest with me. He is the energy expert. To me, he's my own mentor, right? He's a veteran in the industry. I've watched many of his videos and I've always aspired to have this kind of discussion with him. So it's a privilege for me. He is an expert in the energy sector, in the marine law and policy aspect as well. He's also the convener of OTL Africa, right? And he's a doctor, and that's major, right? Some of us don't go to school as much, but that's a major achievement. Welcome, Mr. Dr. Emeka Akabogu.
Thank you very much, Damlola, for having me today.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. I must say, Dr. Emeka, when I wanted to bring you on the show, right, many things occurred to me. I mean, we had a bit of a relationship, and the first time I called you, you were more receptive than I thought, right? When looking at you on TV, I didn't expect that I would just like message you and you just be like, okay, this is the time, let's have this meeting and everything. And that just showed humility, and it didn't show on TV. And I was very, very impressed. In fact, your name has been blown around everywhere that you don't know. So I've been your advocate everywhere you don't know, and I really, really appreciate it. And I just wanted to actually tell you in person,
Thank you.
That's such a great attribute to you. I never expected it.
Thank you.
And you invited me to your birthday. I don't believe it's your age by your face.
I look much older.
No, you look a lot more younger. No way. I got there and I was like, huh? I told people that they were like, huh? That can't be, So, but when I now got to your birthday, we spoke about all your achievements. There was a man that sat next to me. I can't remember his name right now. And I said, you must have, either you didn't sleep, or you divide yourself into two, or you have a twin that did something else with you, right? But to achieve those things you've done in that amount of time, it's remarkable. I mean, you said, correct me if I'm wrong, you first studied something, is in medicine, then you swapped to law. Why did you swap to law? I mean, it pays off now. Now in hindsight, it's great, but why?
Well, I think when you're a young boy or young girl growing up, your parents want you to be a doctor or a lawyer.
You're a doctor now.
So, but the idea of being a doctor then was just idea of being a medical doctor. So, I was good at the sciences, and that's what I did all through until I did my WAEC and JAM. But as I was doing these, I was equally very, very interested in literature, in governments, in the subjects that's in the humanities. So I always ask myself the question, which do I prefer? And I never really answered it until the time I'd finished writing my JAM, writing my work. And it was after I'd finished and got results and got admission that I now decided that really, that's not what I want. So, and I think what did it for me was I didn't get admission to study medicine. I got admission to study biochemistry because I didn't make the cuts.
Again.
Yes. I didn't make the cuts. But at the point I said, look, what's the point? I can't go into this and regret not having taken the path that I am more passionately tuned to. So I had to make that decision to just go back and start all over.
So medicine, biochemistry, law. Wow. You did the biochemistry for like a year or two? Or?
No. I didn't start. Registered, but I didn't start that course.
So you knew what you wanted to do.
I just started.
That's decisive.
Yes, so I had to go.
Wow. Then again, on your birthday again, by the way, as you can see, I paid attention on that birthday. You had a debate, Dr. Emeka. I think the crowd was more Unilag. It was Unilag versus Lasso. And you went to Unilag. So already they had an unfair advantage, if you ask me. There was a crowd and we had to vote, digitally of who... I voted Unilag, I'm not going to lie. But I saw that everyone was, even before they even started the debate, there were more people that actually went to Unilag that were screaming. But I was actually made me think, that was your birthday and decided to showcase these young talents and showcase these people. And I was, to be honest, I went back and I said, listen, if someone gets to that kind of height at a platform where it should be a celebration about you on that kind of landmark birthday, you decided to share that spotlight with people, especially upcoming people. That was very impressive. But I want to ask for your own opinion for that debate. I've tried to recollect the question properly. If you can correct me, if you remember it as well, it was on maritime as well.
Yeah.
In terms of, is it expansion versus optimization of the port? And I thought to myself that day, I was like, both sides had a fair argument of it, and I wanted to know from your opinion what you think actually of that debate.
Um, you know, in the entirety of the events of that day, it was difficult to concentrate. But on the topic, you know, we have many ports, and we have a large need for port operations. So I think it's important that we optimize the value we're able to extract from what we have first before expanding into new areas. So you can't have a situation where, say, we have about 8 major ports in Nigeria. The ports in Lagos are stretched to their limits in terms of their capacity, even though they could do more with better efficiency.
Okay.
But we're thinking of establishing new ports still in Lagos. We have ports in Calabar, for instance, that are underutilized. So if we're able to optimize the operations of ports in Calabar can serve the entire northeastern of Nigeria, southeast of Nigeria. Yet, most of the cargo that is destined for those places still come to Lagos. Simply because we've not optimized the operations of those ones. So, I mean, it's in that light.
So optimization first, then expansion.
I would say optimization first before expansion of the numbers.
Okay, that's amazing, because I felt that same way, but I was swayed back and forth, to be honest, on that day, and it's great to hear that from you actually. So today, aside, I know that's your expertise, maritime, and I know you are also vast in the energy across board. I've heard you on some videos, about the PIA, and in my time, I mean, it was a privilege when I had the opportunity to speak at OTL, by the way, which I told you, and at first it was nerve-wracking because that's a large platform, and it's an amazing platform worldwide, and still doing what it's doing till today, and that time and the longevity. The PIA was done way before my time. People had been advocating it. You have been advocating for it for a long time. So I'm a beneficiary of such powerful people ahead of me. But today, a lot of things have changed from that act in 2021. Right? So in your own opinion, what has changed from that time till now? Has anything been implemented? What has been implemented? And in your own case, are we on that right pace?
Yeah, so you're right. It took a while. In fact, the PIA, I'm sure globally, it's one of those bills that has had the longest gestation period for its development before enactment. But, we have a PIA, Petroleum Industry Act, water and oil, and what needs to be done is to implement it. And implementation, as we're speaking prior to the commencement of this session, it's a dynamic process. And as you implement, you find gaps, you deal with those gaps. But you need to implement it. And you can't define how effectively it is working until you take the steps. And I think that's where we do have some challenges. So yes, it's been implemented in some regard, but in a number of others, it's not. And a very basic one, which all of us are familiar with and which probably is still very is controversial, is with regard to the market deregulation.
That was a major one that was done.
Absolutely.
Yes.
It's the base for the downstream segment of the industry. Market deregulation is at the core of the innovation of PIA.
Yes.
And that market deregulation has not been done.
Fully, would you say? There was some sort of deregulation that happened in June last year, right? In the PMS industry. At least that was what was released.
Well, yes. When the new government came in,
yes.
they announced that there will be no more subsidies. But as I said, and I will repeat, it's dynamic. The market is dynamic. Implementation of the PIA is dynamic. So the reality is, in as much as there was an effective deregulation upon the announcement by the president last year, the swift increases in prices across board, occasioned by the floating of the naira,
yes,
led to the reality that we could have been buying petroleum PMS,
yes,
probably at about 1,000 plus today.
Yes,
1,200, probably at some time even 1,500. But I think that early enough too, the president realized that if the market was let to proceed in the light of full deregulation like had been announced, he probably would not have been able to put a rein on the consequences. And without expressly announcing it, I believe that everyone knows that the market is no longer deregulated.
Yes.
I believe everyone knows, without necessarily saying it, that there is subsidy being paid on PMS as we speak. We're buying PMS. We'll drive into the filling stations.
600 and something.
600 and something.
Yes.
700 and something, depending on where you go to. So, in fact, 800 and something in some places. So what we're seeing is some kind of discretionary deregulation being practiced by some marketers, despite a cap which has been instituted by government. So yes. So in answer to your question, we don't have that deregulated market yet. And as I said, that deregulation is a core component of the translation of PIA within the downstream space.
So do you feel that it needs like a transition period, or do you think, especially for this deregulation, and you raised a very good point, yes, the government had that great intention and it started off that way, but other socioeconomic factors comes into play such that hitting the common man, that would be so high. I can't fathom 1,500 plus of PMS. I can't do it. It's too high, right? So the common man, takes everything up. Food goes up, everything, transportation goes up. They can't survive. So I do understand. So do you think there should be a transitional period, a transitional way, maybe get some things in play, such that yes, you achieve that, but at the same time, is it a portion you remove first whilst you change the type of fuel, which we're all talking about, gas? Is there something of that thing, that do we need to transition, and also do we need to transition faster, essentially?
That's a difficult question, because there are implications across board, and there are several aspects of the economy which need to work together to achieve some ends. And experience has shown us that the economic levers don't always work together in Nigeria. As far back as the 80s, 90s, I mean, I remember as a teenager having to go to queue up at filling stations. In fact, queues during the days of the military used to be the norm.
So
petrol queues.
Was it also based on scarcity, or why were there queues? Is it that there was not enough stations, or because I can't fathom why such since that time still persist? So
Yes. So the market has never been efficient, and the inefficiencies in the market obviously lead to scarcity. So I've always had the experience of queues. 80s, 90s. In fact, in the 90s, when we were in university, most of the time during the holidays, and there were lots of strikes at that time, lots and lots and lots of strikes. So the filling stations were made many friends at filling stations. Many friends I have up till today. Just
good
sitting,
networking spot.
absolutely. Just you're there from morning till night. Your siblings will come to serve you food while you're waiting. So the point is the market has really never been efficient. But we need to get to that point where the market is efficient. Otherwise, we are stagnating, if not going back. So whether we need to transition slowly or quickly, the truth is this. We have neighboring countries. We have Benin Republic, Ghana, Togo, where we know today that the value of PMS, the street value of PMS, is much higher.
It's a lot higher.
2,700 in some places.
That's what I even saw earlier today.
Yes. And they're buying it. So we have to ask ourselves a question. We claim to be the giant of Africa. We claim to be stronger than all other countries. Yet we can't afford to buy petrol for our vehicles, which other countries can afford to buy. It's a question that we need to ask ourselves. Because just like you said it's going to be difficult for anybody to sustainably buy petrol at 1,500 naira in Nigeria today. So it tells us that our entire economic configuration needs to be reviewed, rejigged to ensure sustainable value across all economic indices. That way, we are more productive and we have greater buying power. Because we look at it and you see that most of the avowed 200 plus million people that we have are largely at the bottom of the economic ladder with little or no buying power.
Yes.
And that counts for nothing. So that's what affects everything that we do, which can translate into value. So we have a very robust music and creative space, but it's unable to take advantage of the population because we don't have the buying power. We can't afford to fill arenas with people coming
so much people, yes.
Because people are interested but can't pay.
Can't pay that amount.
So
only a select few.
Yes. So we've got the numbers, but our numbers don't translate in terms of value. So international investors come in based on the numbers, but eventually realize, look, these people really can't buy. Why can't we buy when other countries can buy? So it comes down to, again, coming back to the economic indices upon which our economy is founded and asking critical questions. So it goes beyond, I think it goes beyond having a transition period or what, irrespective. The truth is that ultimately we'll have to pay for it. We've got to be able to give value for it. So we've got to create value.
You're suggesting that at some point we have to bite that bullet fully.
Absolutely. We've got to.
Wow.
Because, and the thing is, probably if we do bite that bullet, then we will be more efficient in usage.
Sure.
And we'll also be more efficient in development of alternative sources.
You are correct, because I'm on band A. We switch off everything. Because the price you're going to pay, I can't afford every power. You can't leave your AC on, saying I want to come in, everyone is cool. There's nothing like that. You switch off the AC, you switch off one or two lights, we conserve.
Yes, yes.
Because, but we are appreciative of the fact that it's readily available. So I think you're correct in that aspect, that if that is readily available and we don't have any issues, I think we might adapt at the end of it. But it's pretty stiff. But you,
Yes.
you mentioned something about international investments and all that. And I'm thinking more local. Today, I read on the news today of PMS. Dangote has said it as well. It's going to come up. In fact, marketers has been invited to offtake. There are different things I've heard. Oh, PMS is going to be at 300. I don't know how that's going to even work. The maths don't add up to me. But I've heard ones of over 1,000. I don't know. But my question is, where does local refineries like Dangote and everyone play, and where does it help reduce this effect, and how?
No, local refineries have a significant role to play because local refineries are able to create value in a way that imports can never. So they create jobs. They create the opportunity for development of skills. First, they do these things first before making the products available. But then they make the product available at a cheaper rate where we don't need to deploy foreign exchange.
Yes.
So, all round, local refineries would greatly positively impact the Nigerian economy. But the environment must be created for these refineries. And that's always a challenge. And it's one of those it's a challenge in a way that I do not understand. Because it's a no-brainer that refineries will create value.
Yeah.
And for them to create value, the environment must be made conducive for them. So I heard Dangote complaining about inability to get crude oil.
Yes.
So
you have to go and import.
Yes, so Dangote is importing millions of barrels of crude oil, which doesn't even meet the high standards of Nigerian crude. I would have preferred that more thoughts and deliberate planning had been invested by the government towards supporting the crude oil needs of that refinery and all other refineries. So it's an important component of the PIA.
Okay.
Feedstock availability to local refining is an important component of the PIA. So it's something we need to look at. And you made the right point, because with Dangote, we now know that potentially 100% of Nigeria's crude oil could be refined in Nigeria. 100% of Nigeria's crude oil potentially could be refined in Nigeria. And that would have a huge multiplier effect on the entire country. The entire economy will have available products, will have much more than available products to export, earn foreign exchange, create lots of jobs. I mean, there's no limiting the opportunities that come with it. So the work is cut out for the regulator and the government agencies that are responsible for facilitating availability of feedstock to local refineries, whether it be Dangote or any other refineries.
So, yes. So, the way I look at it too, and I know I've heard you mention this as well, the price of that feedstock is also critical. Because to me, as a Nigerian, if you give me, we're trying to help the economy, right? So I'm envisioning that you can't give the feedstock to a refinery at a price that is ridiculous, at least for local use, such that since you've removed subsidy, that could be a way to balance it. So if they give these refineries, and this is just my thought, at a price that makes it that once the refinery lands at a certain price we've agreed on that is acceptable. I'm not saying it should be ridiculous, right? Low. I think it makes a lot of sense for the refineries, and I don't know what you think about that.
Well, the industry operates on benchmark rates, and the benchmark rates determine the inputs even before the petroleum products come out. So the inputs in terms of human resources, imported equipment, processes, the entire value chain it works upon benchmarks. And that's why when the international oil price is high, there's a lot of investment going into the industry because people want to take advantage of the high oil prices and get a premium. So those benchmarks, you can't ignore them, and locally we can't ignore them. So it will be it will not be reasonable to expect that Nigerian government or the Nigerian oil industry, say the IOCs, would say, oh, let's sell our crude oil at a rate which is lower than the benchmark rate upon which we calculated our operations long before now. And don't forget that many organizations don't work alone in silos. They work with other partners. They work with financial institutions. Funds are hedged for the purpose of achieving a certain outcome. So transactions have been locked in on the basis of existing benchmarks.
Yes.
And it would be unreasonable for us as Nigerians to expect that these locked-in transactions and benchmarks will be ignored just to satisfy the need for Nigerian refineries to get crude oil at a lower rate. So we've got to be mindful of that. However, that's where government comes in. So government needs to think with the long term in mind. So you have the international IOCs, which are already in joint ventures with the NNPC on behalf of Nigeria for the purpose of exporting crude oil. And their long-term contracts need to be respected.
Okay.
But we have fields which are being developed, or fields which we could deliberately explore for the purpose of meeting local demand. Fields which need not have IOCs involved. Fields which could be worked based on the exclusive purpose of meeting local refining needs, and which need not be benchmarked against the indicative ones which we already have. So you need a long-term plan. I mean, so you see, these things don't happen by magic. You need to be thinking towards a certain outcome to put facts and processes in place to achieve that outcome. If you're not thinking of that for that outcome, then you can't come in the middle of the game to start changing how things operate. So, but if we do that, then chances are that over the course of the period that is expected and anticipated under the framework that you've put in place, yes, you can get lower prices and maybe local pricing too for crude oil for the refineries.
Okay, that's very extensive. It makes a lot of sense to me, what you just said in terms of that. Based on the benchmarks, you don't expect them to change their contracts right now, but those new fields, but that will take some time. So we have to essentially plan for that and plan for. We have to understand that. The public needs to understand that as well. So that's great. In February this year, and I read this online, there was a litigation against an MDPRA.
Yeah.
You were involved. And it was on the caveat of sold in Nigeria. And it's very interesting to me, and I won't say I was torn. I just needed a bit of explanation as to, this party said it's for their own needs. They're not selling it, the petroleum products. And, they didn't want the levy that the PIA says they should pay, and I saw where I sway to your favor. I know it's because you're a great lawyer as well. So I just need an explanation on what that is, exactly.
So all petroleum products imported into Nigeria are subject to a levy.
Yes.
and it is a levy that enables the regulator do its work. And also the levy that, so there's a 0.5% levy,
Yes.
which enables the NNDPRA do its work. Another 0.5% levy, which goes into the gas development fund. And that gas development fund is for the purpose of developing the industry for purposes of deepening gas infrastructure and availability. So it's a levy applicable to all imported petroleum products sold in Nigeria. Of course, businessmen would look for opportunities to avoid the levies. So I think the particular case we're talking about involved telecoms operators who say that they are getting their petroleum products and they are using the products for themselves.
Yes.
So the products are not sold in Nigeria, and to that extent, the levy is not applicable. Well, the matter is currently on appeal, so I won't speak too much on it, but I'll speak just to the judgments of the courts. And the judgment of the courts essentially was to the effect that sold in Nigeria is defined in line with what the regulations have defined it to be. So, sold in Nigeria, as far as you are using these products in Nigeria, as far as you've entered the transaction for them in Nigeria, as far as you're receiving them in Nigeria, it will be sold in Nigeria. And the reality is this. The imported products are deployed for commercial purposes. So our argument was the imported products are deployed for commercial purposes. They're not deployed for charity. So you get value. So the telecoms operator for me gets value
from it
by selling airtime, by selling data.
Yes.
And making profits on selling data. So it's a technical argument, but the point is it's one of those issues about the PIA that you see in life.
Yes.
The PIA coming to life. And I think that it probably will still be subject to further interpretation at appellate levels. So I won't speak much more on that.
Okay, fair enough. And, it's good you said interpretation and what the PIA is. Because I have another question. You wrote this actually sometime last year. Our NUPRC versus NMDPRA in that aspect of midstream. And there are different sections in the PIA that alludes that in some form, NUPRC has operational jurisdiction in that. And NMDPRA too as well. And there's a back and forth. I need a bit of clarification because personally, in my own eye, I'm not a lawyer, as in the industry as well. I just keep seeing points for both sides on there, which makes sense to me. And, after all, what does this mean for the industry? And what's the solution? What do you think from your standpoint, what that solution should be?
Okay, first and foremost, in an ideal environment, we shouldn't have two regulators at each other's throats. Yes. But it is what it is because we have operations. I think it's important to now lay down the background too. So NUPRC is the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission.
Yes.
NMDPRA is the Midstream and Downstream Regulatory Authority. So NUPRC is responsible for regulation of all upstream operations. NMDPRA is responsible for the regulation of all midstream and downstream operations. And an important highlight of the PIA is the clear delineation of operational areas in the value chain. So it separated upstream operations from midstream operations from downstream operations. It's a unique innovation in the PIA. And I agree with that distinction because it enables the operations in the respective value chains to be more visible, to have more integrity, and for accountability. The whole idea of oil theft, I mean, if you know, is not limited to theft in the creeks and thefts by pirates or, oil thieves out there rampaging. There's also a potential of institutional oil theft. There's also potential of corporate oil thefts, which is more nuanced and more sophisticated. But what the PIA does is by ensuring that the delineation of these very respective value chains gives more visibility and ensures more accountability for the various operations. Now, within this innovation, there's also a concept of integrated operations, which essentially refers to operations by organizations which are involved across the respective value chains. So you have oil producers who not just extract crude oil, but they are involved in the movement of the crude oil from point of extraction across pipelines, through terminals, in refining, and all the way to distribution. So you see that they traverse the value chain. So the operators who feel that they do all this want to be regulated by only one organization, as opposed to being regulated by NUPRC on the one hand and NMDPRA on another hand. So that's what's leading to that. And I think at some point, NUPRC felt that it should completely regulate those operators who are involved in integrated operations across all value chains, while NMDPRA wants to regulate those that it is statutorily mandated to regulate. So if you're involved in upstream, then be regulated by, if you're involved in upstream, be regulated by, your upstream operations should be regulated by NUPRC, while your midstream and downstream operations should be regulated by NMDPRA. That's the core of that squabble. And I think the courts if also weighed in.
Okay. I didn't know it was already in.
It went to court. It went to courts, and I think we also acted in that matter.
Okay.
We acted in that matter, and at some points the IOC that was involved and its partners decided to withdraw. So they brought it to court for the court to make a determination.
Who should they? Because I'm sure there will be like double dipping and double.
Yes. So I think also the presidency also weighed in at some point.
Okay.
To clearly delineate the operational jurisdiction of both NUPRC and NMDPRA, and I think more or less that's been taken care of now.
So it's been sorted right now. So
it's largely, we hope it's largely been sorted, but you never know with government agencies.
Well, that's great because I was confused when I saw it. I was like, this is a real problem.
It is,
and especially for the operators, it's not going to be encouraging because the PIA is there to ensure that investment comes in as well.
Absolutely.
So things like that will discourage investment coming in, and that's not what we need right now.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
that's amazing. We're getting to the end of it, and we could go on for forever. Right? I have a question. Right?
Yes.
For the industry right now, in your perspective, what's the trend? What do you see as the forecast? What do you see as investors should do based on what you think? We've seen a new government and what they're trying to implement. We've seen how the implementation is going so far. You've seen where operators are going towards CNG. Marketers are, Dangote is saying PMS is coming up. What's your trend? What are you looking at in the next 5 to 10? And what do you think people should, based on that, go after, essentially?
Well, I think it's important that people also read the room globally. So we've got the global trend towards alternative energy,
Yes.
clean energy,
Sustainability.
sustainability. And in as much as Nigeria has argued that the that hydrocarbons are still an integral component of the energy options.
Yes.
The reality is that if we're reading what's happening globally, it's important that we integrate the global trends within local operations. So, what happens when parts of existing machinery, which are dependent on hydrocarbons, stop being produced?
Yeah.
Our vehicles. What happens when we have more electric vehicles being produced globally than
Fossil fuel.
yes, than those on that are driven on hydrocarbons? So we need to read the room now, but nonetheless, we also need to optimize the value from our hydrocarbons, because from an economic point of view, it's still integral to our operations. So what I see happening really is, yes, a lot more people will be focusing on the energy value chain as
Okay.
opposed to limiting themselves to the oil and gas value chain. So that's already happening.
So you have like the likes of Total going from to Total Energy.
Precisely.
Okay.
Precisely. And that is very useful because it creates the options. We have a situation where we're complaining about the price of petroleum products. So it's good, and that should be encouraged going forward. From a government point of view, there needs to be more effective regulation. There needs to be increased focus on competition. Now, competition is crucial to attract that investment which we need. We need much more clarity on policy, and we need that clarity on policy to be backed by positive action and support when it comes to supporting the investments which are being undertaken, whether it's foreign investments or even local investments. In fact, local investments more important. So that's the way I see it. I see that in the next couple of years, we'll have expanded and more expanded energy options, and more competition within the local markets, and more Nigerian companies going on to the continent, because the Africa Continental Free Trade Area is equally going on very strong.
Yeah.
And the opportunities across the continent are widening. So those widening opportunities feed into a competitive environment that ensures more productivity. And we hold that. So I'm speaking not just to what I see as strengths, but also aspirationally
Yes.
for the industry.
Oh, that's great. So we know what to look forward to and what to do and invest to put our investment in. You know, we have to look more than, as you said, fossil fuel as well. Expand that business horizon for us.
Absolutely.
One more thing, right? We're on the Energy Hack podcast. I know you're a doctor. That's already your cape, which I envy a lot. I don't know how you do it. I don't think I can go and become. I've been offered. It's a lot of work. I don't know how you balance it with everything you do. What's your energy hack? What makes Dr. Emeka, and gives you that edge?
That's a trick question in some ways.
It could be more than one.
I think I like to take things easy. I don't see anything as do or die. I look at the targets, I aspire towards it, I'm putting my best to get to it. If I don't get to it, I'm happy. So nothing is worth dying for, if you put it that way. So take life easy, take your targets easy, put in your best and ensure you put in your best. If you're not successful, that's the way it is. Get on to the next. Try some other time.
That's amazing. But it seems like your target, you are very good at aiming. So essentially, you have to sharpen that sword to ensure that you hit the target
Absolutely,
well.
absolutely.
That's an amazing thing. Take things easy, especially with the
Yes.
way everything is. Nothing is a do or die.
Nothing.
To
Absolutely
round
nothing.
up, I would like you to how do we contact you? Your email, your website, things like that, likely to the camera.
Okay, well, I'm on LinkedIn. I communicate very well on LinkedIn. I'm learning to communicate more on Twitter. So yeah, those are the two, and of course email.
Yes.
So email is just for direct communications, but LinkedIn I can always be reached on LinkedIn. Emeka Akabogu. Same Twitter. I think Twitter is Emeka_Akabogu. Which other one? I'm not on Instagram.
You're not on Instagram.
I should get on Instagram.
We have to work on that. You get on Instagram, on TikTok, on
Yes.
all the
We should get there. We should get there.
Give them nuggets.
Absolutely.
You know.
Absolutely.
And I know we didn't touch on it much. Two things. It's more on the your firm. I think people need to know the amazing things you guys do. Which is Akabogu and Associates.
Yes. So thanks. I mean, my firm, we are a commercial law firm, and we focus on we have a specialist focus on some segments. Of course, maritime, which is my specialist area.
Yes.
Energy and natural resources, international trade. So these are our specialist areas that we do a lot of work around. A number of other practice areas which all relate to commercial segments of the economy. So yeah, so we work with the industry, work with the oil and gas industry, the maritime industry, across the range of practice areas that we're involved in, and it's compatible with the other relationships that we have. So we simply leverage on our knowledge of the industry, our knowledge of operations, to help our industry stakeholders solve legal problems.
Amazing. You being the convener of OTL and our industry partner, we thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
We look forward to this year's OTL, by the way.
Oh, absolutely.
What should we look forward to? And it's coming around the corner already, and I'm gearing up. By the way, I'm just coming in. I'm not even paying.
I mean, OTL is an event for the industry, downstream, midstream, and increasingly those in the upstream are looking in because again, integrated operations. So OTL gets everybody who is a player to see what other people are doing, develop relationships, because the business value only comes from interacting with one another, knowing who is doing what, and
within our community.
Absolutely. So that's what we do. And again, for 2024, we're looking forward to a very exciting time with all the new developments. Dangote coming on stream, what is going to be happening, what's the competition beginning to look like as we're transitioning, to what extent are alternative options coming into the market. So quite a range of things.
It's in August, right?
It's in October.
End of
October.
October.
Yeah, so if you're not in downstream, start getting ready. If you're already there, get ready. It's the 2024 will be the best, I would say.
Exciting times. So thank you again, Dr. Emeka Akabogu.
Thank you very much.
It was my pleasure to have you. And guys, you've heard it. Take things easy, but hit your targets. Thank you. See you on the next episode of the Energy Hack Podcast. Thank you.